Caseus, Jedi Apprentice. Chapter 4. The following weeks of training were far more strenuous than Caseus originally anticipated. Master Takai had begun teaching Caseus more advanced techniques and skills, frequently sending him to other masters in the temple for lessons on flying, negotiation, and basic repairs for droids, starships, and speeders. On top of this, Master Drawlig's lessons on Form 2 combat were drawing every ounce of energy he could muster, and still he was expected to continue researching for hours on end about the ins and outs of the form. By the end of the month, however, Caseus saw noted improvements not only in his technique, but his balance and control. Even Corbin showed significant growth in his skills and his patience. Caseus figured that Master Dravok's lessons must have accomplished something. On top of everything else, Sarah seemed less confrontational around Caseus, though she would happily correct his technique every chance she could. After a particularly grueling session under Master Drawlig, the students were dismissed and Caseus and Corbin had enough free time to relax on the temple steps. "The sooner we move on to Form 3, the better," said Corbin. Caseus agreed. "Yeah, at least I have some experience in that style. Knowing Master Drawlig, he'll find a way to make the lessons just as difficult." "So, what kind of stuff have you been learning from Master Dravok?" "Lots of things. He says the most important thing to learn in his area of work is patience. There's so much waiting involved when you're trying to catch criminals in the act. I didn't see it personally, but he says that there are some pirates in the lower levels smuggling dioxis into the city." "Dioxis? That stuff is lethal. They could cause a lot of trouble with that kind of poison." "Well, he says that the Senate has been informed and security is tightened like crazy, but if anyone can put a stop to it, he can. The guy has definitely seen his fair share of action, I'll tell you that." "Yeah, I picked up on that by just looking at him. How did he get those scars on his face, do you think?" "Well, from what I could gather, he and his master stopped the transport of wild Nexu on level 1313. "Nexu?" "Nasty critters. Lots of eyes, even more teeth, razor-sharp claws. They stopped the transport, but the Nexu got loose. Carved them up pretty good. But they put an end to them." "Why would they have been transporting creatures like that?" "All kinds of reasons. Some high-level crime lords like to keep them as pets. Some use them for sport and pit them against other creatures. The worst is when they use them for executions. Ugh, I'd hate to be on the receiving end of those teeth." "No kidding. So what's the news outside the Republic? Are they still keeping an eye on the Viceroy?" "More or less. Ever since their trade federation was shut down after the Naboo invasion, Newt Gunray's been keeping a pretty low profile. I doubt he's turned a new leaf, but I don't think many in the Senate see him as much of a threat anymore. I heard that Queen Amidala is considering joining the Senate once her term is up. I think she'd be a great asset to the Republic. That whole business on Naboo really strengthened her people's trust in her. Personally, I try to keep out of politics. Just complicates things and holds back real progress." "Real progress?" "Yeah. Think about it, Caseus. We're supposed to help people, right? No matter who they are or what they believe. But the Republic sets up rules for us to follow on who we're allowed to help and when. By the time we're allowed to take action, sometimes it's too late. We shouldn't be subservient to the Republic's rules on which people deserve help." "On some level, I agree with you, but our allegiance is to democracy, the rights of all people to be free and make their own way in the galaxy. Right now, the Republic is the best option we have. As long as they're keeping peace in the galaxy, we should aid their efforts however we can." "Yeah, maybe. I gotta get going. I have another lesson pretty soon." "Okay, see you later." Corbin left Caseus sitting alone. Just as he began to take in the scenery, his comlink began to beep. Picking it up, Caseus answered. "Hello?" "Caseus, report to your quarters immediately and do not leave until further notice." "Master? Is something wrong?" "Do as I say, Caseus, that's an order." Without another word, Caseus got up and returned swiftly to his room, feeling extremely confused. Sitting on his bed, he wondered what in the world was happening that he had to report to his chambers with no explanation. After an hour, there was a knock on Caseus' door. "Come in." Master Takai entered his room and stood in front of him, a very grim look on her stern face. "Master, what's going on?" "The temple is currently under lockdown." "What? Why?" "Temple security located a dioxis bomb planted in the archives." "Are you serious? Who put it there?" "We are trying to figure that out. Master Dravok is currently working with the temple security to discover the identity of the culprit. As of now, the bomb has been deactivated, and the evidence is being turned over to city security for further investigation. You and the other students are to remain in your quarters until we can determine that no other bombs have been planted. What about the security recordings? Did they catch the perpetrator? We have our temple security looking through the recordings, but whoever perpetrated this attack has managed to evade being spotted. What's more disturbing is that we currently have no suspects. Who would try to attack the temple? I know we have enemies, but who would attempt to strike here at the center of the order? Caseus, oftentimes the threat within is greater than the threat on the outside. You think a Jedi might have done this? I don't know, Caseus. I don't have any answers. I must report to the younglings and ensure that they stay safe. In the meantime, I urge you to clear your mind and wait here until you're called. Yes, Master. Within the hour, Caseus and the other students were summoned to the briefing chambers and told what had happened. Dravok was there with a few members of the High Council. An attempt on the safety of our temple has been thwarted. Who perpetrated this attack we cannot say. But we must thank the Force that no one was hurt. My team and I recently discovered that Dioxa's weaponry was being traded in the lower levels of the city. We were under the impression that we prevented these weapons from being sold to dangerous individuals. Unfortunately, it appears as though several deadly canisters of Dioxis have eluded us and made their way into dangerous hands. Rest assured, we will not rest until each one has been recovered. In the meantime, I strongly recommend caution to all. Constant vigilance is key to your safety and the safety of your fellow Jedi. Please return to your normal lives, and may the Force be with you all. The meeting was adjourned, and those in attendance swiftly returned to their normal duties. Caseus walked with Corbin as they made their way to the training grounds for their lessons. Who in the right mind would want to try to attack us here? They're either brave or stupid. Well, the two aren't mutually exclusive. I mean, you're a prime example of that. I think Master Dravok is right, though. We need to be on our toes. Agreed. Hey! Caseus and Corbin turned to see Sarah leaning on a temple pillar. So, who do you guys think is responsible? No clue, but it has to have been someone with real hatred for the Jedi. Well, that doesn't narrow it down much. It would also have to be someone who knows the temple inside and out to be able to evade being captured by the security cameras. I talked to Dravok about that before the briefing. According to him and Master Drolig, that could be a number of people. Every temple guard and everyone working security is going to be brought in for questioning. Wait, what about Dravok? You don't think he had anything to do with this, do you? It couldn't have been Dravok. He was in the lower levels when it was planted. It has to have been someone else. Someone with ties to the underbelly of the city. Well, we can talk about this later. We should get to Master Drolig's session. The three pupils then made their way outside to the courtyard where Master Drolig was waiting. I sincerely hope you have all done your research. Your skills in Form 2 will be tested today, before we begin our studies on Form 3. Recent events have caused a commotion in the temple, but you will be expected to continue your studies while our security deals with things. The Padawans nodded and sat in the circle. I'm fully aware that none of you are masters of this form. This class is not about mastery of any one form, but gaining a deeper knowledge of each one. Each of you has shown a competent knowledge of Form 2 thus far. Today you will be pitted against each other, utilizing what you have learned. Corbin, Caseus, perhaps the two of you would be so kind as to be our first volunteers? Caseus and Corbin nodded, stepping into the dueling circle. Caseus was excited. The last time he sparred with Corbin was years ago when they were younglings, learning the bare basics of wielding a lightsaber. He was curious to see how this fight would turn out. Caseus, Corbin, ignite your weapons. Corbin and Caseus both switched on their sabers. The shining emerald blade of Caseus pointed downward in a standard Form 2 position. Corbin took his stance with a signature Makashi salute, his deep indigo blade humming with energy in front of his face. Ready? The two pupils nodded. Begin! Corbin and Caseus began circling each other as two predators would in the jungle, each waiting for the precise opportunity to strike. Corbin would be the first to strike, quickly angling his blade in a swift cut toward Caseus' feet. Caseus swiped his blade down in response, catching the blade before it could make contact. The two sabers began striking each other with deft accuracy and precision. Caseus kept his mind calm. There was no fear in his mind, nor in Corbin's. They knew each other too well to be intimidated by the other. Caseus swiftly stepped to the side and struck at Corbin's arm, who countered with a surprisingly graceful riposte, blocking the attack and attempting to spin Cassius' blade from his grip. Caseus was smart enough to notice this and swiftly countered, turning his wrist and countering with a stab to Corbin's torso, which he evaded, breaking the engagement. The two continued back and forth, neither gaining the advantage until Caseus clashed blades with Corbin and quickly angled his blade downward towards Corbin's wrist, forcing him to drop his weapon. "Excellent work, you two. I will be sure to inform your masters of this impressive performance. Have a seat." Corbin and Caseus bowed as they sat, listening to Master Drolig's lecture as he called up other students to participate. By the end of the day, every student had managed to sufficiently prove their skill with Makashi. "I am pleased to see you have all learned something from these lessons. Our next class will focus on Form 3, the defensive form. I will see you then. Please report to your masters now, and do not wander. Padawans have not yet been cleared to roam the temple until a search has been completed." The day drew to an early close as the students left the training grounds. Caseus and Corbin walked through the halls of the temple to find their masters. "Not bad out there. Pretty clever trick. Thanks. I picked it up while researching Master Dooku the other day. Well, we'll see if you're lucky enough to win next time we fight." Caseus and Corbin suddenly halted, both feeling an intense disturbance from nearby. "You sense that?" "Yeah. Come on." Caseus and Corbin rushed down the corridor. "It's coming from the security quarters." They entered the chamber, looking through the window to the quarters only to see two Jedi face down on the floor struggling to move or breathe, a sickly green gas filling the room. "Dioxis! Corbin, sound the temple alarm!" Caseus opened a pouch on his belt, removing his rebreather. "Caseus, no! Your rebreather won't filter out the Dioxis! It's better than nothing. I'll be okay. Just sound the alarm and be ready to seal off this door." Caseus attached his rebreather and rushed in, the Dioxis immediately burning his nose and eyes. Grabbing the two Jedi, he pulled them out towards the doorway, his breathing quickly becoming shallow and labored as his vision grew blurry. Before he could reach the door, it sealed up. Caseus panicked, his breath quickly failing as the Dioxis gas filled his lungs. He collapsed. As his vision began to fade, a blue blade of light cut through the door and a shadow walked towards him before everything went black.